Good morning. Happy Friday. I am Brian Nemhauser. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. We are at the end of the work week. It is Friday, however you like to call it. It is TGIF, and it is a beautiful day in the Northwest. So hopefully the weather holds for the weekend and everyone gets to go out and enjoy some summer, spring sun in Seattle or Washington or Oregon or Montana or wherever you are. And I know some folks are tuning in the evening, different parts of the planet. So good evening to you wherever you are enjoying a little Seahawks talk to start Friday. Yeah, we're in it. We're in the point where there's not a lot going on relative to NFL and football. We just had the schedule released. We've been through the draft. We're not even really doing OTAs, mini camps yet. I think the 20th, we're 3 days away from some of that starting to show up, where the rookies will roll back into town and get that going. The rookies will meet the veterans for the first time, and we'll start to hear those conversations and hear those reactions from players. Hopefully, we'll get some press conferences next week. We'll get some new info and give us a little bit more things to go over. But what that does provide, and what I do like about this time of the year, is that it allows us to go a little bit more in depth. And so I'm going to probably start trying to take on some topics, involve a little bit more research, a little bit more prep than I normally would do for these shows. And I welcome if people have questions or ideas or things that they would be interested in hearing more about for the Seahawks. I can't promise I'll listen. Well, I'll promise I'll listen. I can't promise I will actually do the ideas that are generated, but I did ask my YouTube members that question, and I've already got some good ideas from them. And always happy to hear from folks, and we'll get into it. One of the topics that I do want to cover, not today, but maybe even tomorrow, we'll see when it comes up, is I want to get into what I think of as maybe a less explored area, which is a running back room and Zach Charbonnet versus Kenneth Walker. And I don't want to necessarily set it up as really like one is good and one is bad. It's not that. But I think that in general, the perspective is that Kenneth Walker is clearly the number one and clearly the better player. I see it a little bit more shades of gray than that, and I think there's a little bit more nuance, and I think there's even some debate over who is the most productive runner. And so I'll put a little research into that, so it's not just my opinion, and come back. We'll talk about that soon. I also excited to announce that Jarek Reed II will be on our show Monday. And we will be getting to talk to Jarek about what's going on with his experiences after his rookie season and heading into his second year. So looking forward to talking to Jarek. That will be in the afternoon as he's got stuff going on in the morning. So looking forward to talking to Jarek soon. I see a bunch of our YouTube members in the chat. Good morning to Hawks fan Matt Man. Good morning to Corey Hickok. Good morning, Plenipote. And appreciate Plenipote says this is the stream you've been waiting for. Well, let's hope we live up to it. I'll do my best. What I wanted to talk about today is usually one of the things that when you get the schedule, there are win percentages of like, okay, here's what this team did last year. Here's their DVOA from last year, all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that isn't there, you get maybe the first week odds, but you really generally are not getting odds for all the future games of the season. And so what I wanted to do, I wanted to actually bring in a new site, or at least new to me, and it's from one of our guests, or at least the company he works for, Sean Clement. If you remember, Sean joined us on Real Hawk Talk just before the draft. And Sean works for Sumer Sports. That is Sumer Sports. And it has a bunch of former NFL guys, including the former GM of the Atlanta Falcons. Thomas Dimitroff, I think, is the head of Sumer Sports. And one of the things that I thought was cool, and I just don't know if I've seen this in other places, but if you have seen it in other places, so be it. We'll learn together. But they have win probabilities for every week of the season. And so what I wanted to do was actually go through and cover the win probability that they have for every game. You can see where we feel about it relative to them, and talk about what that looks like if the probabilities work out as they say. What does that mean for the Seahawks? All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen. You can watch along with me. And I've been bugging Sean Clement because there are some things that weren't clear on here. But let me go ahead and zoom in for you all a little bit. All right. That's probably as much as it makes sense to do. A couple things that were interesting on this site and relative to their pieces, they have this probability or this watchability score, 1.55. I'm going to take a chance here and quickly go back to the list of other games. You could see that this game is one of the least watchable in the first week of the season. So, for example, let's go all the way up to the Packers-Eagles has a 9.16. That's a Friday game. The Thursday game, the Ravens-Chiefs, is 9.56. I'm going to assume it's a 1 to 10 or 0 to 10 kind of watchability score. And so the Seahawks are one of the least. I don't think the Bears are one of the least watchable teams this season with Caleb Williams, but they get a pretty low watchability score. Patriots-Bengals, 1.31. The Panthers-Saints, yeah, I think that's a fair 0.73 watchability score. And the Seahawks are 1.55 against the Broncos. I think that's fair. If I wasn't a Seahawks fan, I don't think I would be clamoring to watch the Seahawks play the Broncos. And it's actually one of the kind of less discussed storylines for the Seahawks is I think they're just kind of a boring team outside. Like, if you're not a Seahawks fan, I don't think there's a lot of reasons to tune in to watch the Seahawks. You love DK Metcalf, maybe Devin Witherspoon, but this in general has just not been that watchable of a team. And I found myself just bored watching them at times. I can't remember being bored watching a Seahawks team in a long time, but they just were kind of blah. And I hope that they get a little bit more of an edge. I hope there's a little bit more flair, I guess. Maybe that's the wrong word, but it doesn't feel like exactly the right word, but something that makes them more watchable and more interesting than they've been, I think, really the last few years. Question in chat is, how many Seahawks hats do I have? I mean, I have a lot. I've probably given away more Seahawks hats than I have, but all the different events I go to, a lot of times they'll give them away. I've bought a number of them, but I have a few that are my go-tos on game day. One in particular I've had since I want to say I had it since the first Super Bowl year. I don't know. I've had it a very long time. And that one is holding on for dear life, but I'll put that on another day. I'll let you know which one that is. Good morning to Eric Kinnaman. Good morning to Swedish Shinobi. Great to have you guys tuning in this morning. All right. So, getting back to win probabilities for the first game of the season, the Seahawks have a 64.8% win probability. They are favored by, I think, 5.5 points. And I think there are only a couple teams favored by more in the first week of the season. So, this is a very solid, highly likely to win. So, highly likely that the Seahawks are 1-0 to start the season. A couple other things we might get into here. These are all based on last year's numbers, but they've got some interesting pieces here. They've got the EPA margin, and that is, your EPA versus what you're giving up. And the Seahawks were 18th last year. I think almost every stat shows the Seahawks have been a mediocre team. They're like so many of their stats are like 16th in the NFL. The Broncos were 24th in that particular stat. This is looking at offense versus defense. And so this is the Broncos offense versus the Seahawks defense. And it's just a reminder of how bad this Seahawks defense was last year. 29th in EPA per pass, 31st in EPA per rush, 27th in echo rate. Now, I had to ask Sean Clement what that was. I can't imagine any of you have joined. Or any of you have guessed that, by the way. I don't know why I say joined. So echo is a sustained drive rate. And the reason that they track that is sustained drives are highly predictive because methodically driving the ball is the hardest thing to do offensively. So teams that can do it tend to win. If you're just a big play touchdown team, or you drive until at least the opponent 40. So either you get a big play TD or you drive until at least the opponent 40. Either is an echo drive. Not sure I understand that part. And then points per echo drive tell you the most efficient when driving successfully. I don't know what all of that means, but I do think that echo as a sustained drive rate's interesting. The Seahawks defense were one of the worst in giving up sustained drives, 27th in that number. The Broncos offense is 19th. So that was with Russell at the helm. We'll see what they do with Bo Nix. I'm curious if people think that the offense is going to be better with Bo Nix. That'd be a real, I don't know. That would not say good things about Russell Wilson if Bo Nix comes in and actually improves the offense as a rookie. I'm not going to go through this in each of the matchups, but I thought just giving you guys a little bit of a rundown here. I mean, the Seahawks defense was just pretty much bad in almost all cases. Early down EPA, they were 25th. Third and fourth down success rate, they were 30th. This was one of the things that, if I could change one thing about the Seahawks, I wrote this about them just not being a tough team. I think this is where it showed up. Is they just, if it was a shorter yardage play, if it was a goal line play, they were never good in those situations last year. And I'm ready on either side of the ball, really. So I'm ready for them to solve that. And the Seahawks have been a bad third down team for, it feels like, a long time. It'd be nice for that to change. When you switch sides and you're looking at the Seahawks offense versus the Broncos defense actually was susceptible to the pass last year. They were 27th in EPA per pass. The Seahawks were 11th. The Seahawks offense, you look at that, and on one hand, you get 11th in EPA per pass, 14th in EPA per rush, 12th in echo rate against that sustained drives. 4th in early down EPA. So one of the best teams in the league in first and second downs. But then it was like third down and fourth down where they're 26th. Their average distance on third down was 21st. which is kind of surprising to have such a bad third down distance when you've got such a high early down EPA. But my point is that the Seahawks were top half of the league in almost all offensive categories that they're tracking here. But they did it with an offensive line that was just atrocious and injured and changing. And I mean, this team is an offensive line away from having a very good offense. And I'm still a little annoyed with the way they approached the offseason. There are some ways the Jonah Jackson signing in LA, which just bothers me, because if the Seahawks had made that signing, he would be in Seattle and not in LA. So not only do they not have him, but he went to a rival, and which helped complete one of the better young offensive lines in the game. And they just have left a lot up to chance. We have to hope Christian Haynes is a absolutely great rookie. We have to hope that Anthony Bradford takes a step forward. We have to hope that Laken Tomlinson was really being affected by blocking for Zach Wilson and that he's still got something in the tank. We have to hope that Mike Jarrell or Satoa Laumea, step up and have potential to play early. There's a lot of hoping on the offensive line, and it's a shame because as someone who's a Geno backer, this guy's never been given a truly good situation with which to work in, and I would love to see what he could do if he had that. Hopefully it's better than last year. Better than last year, but we'll see. If you're wondering on the side here, if you can see it, there's this stat, PROE. That is pass rate over expected. And the Seahawks were 9th in that. So I'm going to be curious to see with this new team. I'm thinking that's going to fall. I think the Seahawks are going to be a heavier run team than they were under Pete Carroll, which is going to be this ironic storyline that people are going to get. I think all the analytics people are going to freak out and they're start going to yelling at Mike McDonald when he's running the ball too much. But I think that they want to be a more physical team than they were. And I think you're going to see the run percentages jump. I'll be curious to see what that does for Geno Smith and his numbers. Wouldn't be surprised if it helps. So again, in this one, the win probability is 64.8. Okay. Now, I think I might have to lower the zoom to get back. I thought I could switch between the different weeks. No, I guess I can't at this level. So I think I have to go back to the main page. It'd be nice if I could just go through. Let's go through. Can I go through the Seahawks? Let me see. 1 second. I should have tried this beforehand. Let's go back to this. Let me see if I can go to the Seahawks page. Nope, not clickable. Would be nice if it was. I'm just zooming around here for a second, seeing if I can get a simpler way to go through this. Nope, they don't have team-specific pages. All right. So we'll now go to week 2. So week 1 was 65% essentially win probability. Very low watchability score. I like the watchability score. I think that's pretty funny. And the Seahawks win probability I'm kind of rethinking something. Can we do this real time? I'm going to do the Rams. Let's do all the teams, okay? So let's do Seahawks, Rams, 49ers, Cardinals. So let me go back to week 1 and get the other teams' win probabilities. All right. So the Cardinals win probability is 27%. I'll call it 28% in week 1. Where is it? The Rams win probability is 40% in week 1. And the 49ers, the 49ers have a 68. I think that is off because it's based off of last year. It's probably based on last year's metrics and a Jets team that did not have. But so be it. Let's call it a 68% win rate for a probability for the 49ers. Okay, so going into week 2, if that's the case, by the way, the Seahawks and the 49ers would be 1-0, and the Rams and the Cardinals would be 0-1. 49ers have a 70% win probability in week 2. I think that sounds about right. The Seahawks have a 59% win probability in week 2. We'll go and look at that matchup a little more closely. The Rams have a 57.5% probability to win against the Cardinals, which means the Cardinals have a 42.5%. So that would make the Seahawks 2-0, make the Rams 1-1, the 49ers 2-0, and the Cardinals 0-2. Let's take a quick look at this matchup a little bit more, and I'll go back and zoom in again for folks that are following along. Sorry, I got lost there. Just reacquainting ourselves with the Patriots. I think their defense, excellent against the run last year, 3rd in EPA per rush. Their echo rate, again, the sustained drive rate that they allowed, was 7th in the NFL at 42%. Their EPA per, like the points per sustained drive, how efficient they are when they sustain drive, do they score, was 3rd in the NFL on defense. So even when a team has a sustained drive, their amount of points is not great against what was this Patriots defense last year. And that's with one of the worst field positions. The 32nd average field position was 31.6, which was worst in the NFL. That's interesting. I mean, that was a very good defense last year. They're getting guys back in Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback, who was looking pretty good last year. I think the offense is certainly where the questions are. This was, if not the worst offense in the league last year, was right up there. And I don't know that they really got that much better. Jacoby Brissett is certainly going to be better than the quarterbacks that they've had. I'm assuming he's going to start week 2, but it could be Drake May. And, you know, I think Jacoby Brissett is a passable starter. So we'll see. We'll see. I think this one's one to watch for sure. Let's head into week 3. Week 3. And again, we're using Sumer Sports, Sumer Sports. This is the company that Sean Clement works for. Friend of the show. And as we get into this, we will get, I forgot to look at the watchability score. Did anyone see the watchability score? I'm guessing it wasn't good. All right, the Dolphins come to Seattle in week 3, and the Seahawks win probability for that is 42.5%. They do not think the Seahawks are going to win at home. They do give that a 7.9 watchability score. I think the Dolphins are one of the most watchable teams. The Cardinals in week 3, they give a 35.8% win probabilities. I mean, the Cardinals would start off 0-3, which I don't think is crazy at all. The 49ers play the Rams. This has a 9.23 watchability score. They give the 49ers a 59.3% chance to win that, which means the Rams have a 40.7% chance. This would mean the Rams would start off 1-2, the 49ers 3-0. I wonder how many games, if any, the 49ers are not going to be likely to win. I mean, I think if we're going to go based on probability, I'm guessing the 49ers in this are going to end up like 14-3 or something like that, but we'll see. Okay, so we go into week 4. Actually, let's go and check out the Seahawks game a little bit closer. I should do a little bit more digging there. Where is it? There it is. Just to reacquaint people with the Dolphins of at least last year, their offense, it's like the opposite of, not quite the opposite, but very different than the Patriots that were a very defense-oriented team. This is a very offense-oriented team. One of the top couple of offenses in the NFL, second in the league in EPA per pass, fifth in EPA per rush, seventh in echo rate. Again, that's sustained drives. Fifth in EPA, so points per sustained drive, and 2.8 points. They were third in early down EPA and 12th in third and fourth down success. And that's even with a average third down distance that's 28th in the NFL, which I still find that very odd, how these teams that have such high early down EPA, it must be when they're scoring their points is on early downs, because that's a points related metric. EPA is points related. But I don't know. It's still odd to me why you'd be so good on early downs and then have the largest distance to go on third downs. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. On defense, they were decent last year. They were kind of middle of the road. Of course, they lost some really good players, but they also didn't have Jalen Ramsey for the whole year. You know, I think it's worth just. I think they get. I don't know. We'll go back when we do the actual preview. We'll kind of get into that a little bit more. But interesting to see that their pass rate over expected was 14th. Is that right? Yeah. Which is less than the Seahawks, which is kind of surprising. All right. So that's a look at week 3. Let's go to week 4. And the Rams have a 45% chance to win in week 4 at the Bears. Interesting. I don't know if I see it that way, but that's what the numbers here are saying. 5.91 watchability score. I think that's a pretty watchable game. And the Seahawks, well, let's see. We'll get to the Seahawks in a second. The Cardinals have a 56% chance to get what will be their first win, if this is all correct, in week 4 and go to 1-3. The Rams would be 1-3 if this is how it plays out. I don't know if I see that. 49ers with an 83% chance to win against the Patriots. I think that sounds about right. And that leaves the Seahawks on Monday Night Football against the Lions with just a 30.6% chance to win in that game. If this is true, the Seahawks would fall to 2-2. Let's take a closer look at the matchup between the Seahawks and the Lions. They give it only a 5.55 watchability score. Come on. Seahawks, the Lions games have been some of the most entertaining games the past couple of years. So I personally think that's a very watchable game. As far as the Lions go, I think we know this team pretty well, but their defense struggled against the pass. They were 22nd in EPA per pass. The Lions did what great front offices and teams do, is they identified, like, okay, we've got greatness in a lot of our team, but where's this weakness? And we're going to put all of our efforts. They put so much free agent, trade, draft capital into addressing their secondary. I love Terry and Arnold. For me, he's the best cornerback in the draft. You know, Ennis Rakenstraw, I don't know as much, but as a safety corner kind of guy, another highly thought of secondary player. So going from 22nd in the NFL in EPA per pass, if they get that I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they can get that into the top half. The other thing that this doesn't show here is their pass rush, and I don't think their pass rush was that great. Aiden Hutchinson was really their only pass rusher. They signed Marcus Davenport, but I'm not convinced that they've really addressed the pass rush. And I think that people forget that really does affect your pass defense, pretty closely related to coverage. They gave up a lot of sustained drives. They're 21st in the NFL on defense and giving up sustained drives. They had the average of the second best field position on over their defense. Teams started on the 26-yard line. And then one of the things that's interesting with the Lions is they struggled on early down EPA. They were 18th in the NFL in that, and the Seahawks were quite good there. They were 4th again on offense in that, and I think that's played out in those games the past couple of years. They were good on third down. The Lions defense, they were 9th in the NFL in third down. The Seahawks clearly weren't, but it didn't end up hurting them in terms of points scored for the Seahawks. Offensively, the Lions are just a super efficient crew, and they're top 10 in every category tracked here. So very, very efficient offense, very powerful offense. And I think honestly, I think this team really should have beaten the 49ers last year. And if I was a Lions fan, I know they're excited to make the playoffs and win a game, or two, but I think they really had it. They had the Super Bowl, like playing in the Super Bowl, in their hands for sure. All right, let's go to week 5. If you're keeping score, we're 4 games into the season. The Seahawks, by probability, are 2-2. The Rams are 1-3. The 49ers are 4-0. The Cardinals are 1-3. All right, so the Seahawks are in second place in week 5, heading into week 5. And here we go with the Cardinals facing the 49ers. The Cardinals have a 21% chance to win this one. The 49ers have a 78.8% chance to win. Like I said, I don't think there's going to be many games that the 49ers aren't favored to win. I think that's just a reality. Still the most talented roster in the NFL, if you ask me. The Rams have this is fascinating. This is in LA, but they give the Rams a 54.7% chance to beat the Packers at home. I don't see it that way. I mean, I know home field and all, but I think that one's a little bit closer than that. The Rams are quite good, though. So they give the Seahawks a 61.5% chance to beat the Giants at home. If all of this plays out, the Seahawks would be 3-2. The Rams would be 2-3. The Cardinals would be 1-4, and the 49ers would be 5-0. All right. Let's take a little closer look at this matchup with the Giants. I mean, the Giants were a disaster on offense last year. They were okay on defense. Their offensive line is just atrocious, and they didn't really do anything to address it. I mean, their offense was 29th or worse in pretty much every statistic tracked here. Their defense was not good against the run. They were 29th in the NFL in EPA per rush. They also were not great in early down EPA, 24th. But otherwise, they were like a top half, middle of the road, I would say, NFL defense last year. Kayvon Thibodeau came on. I think they've got some things going for them on defense. So, I think it's very likely the Seahawks win this game, but still just worth remembering that Malik Neighbors will be there. We'll see how much he can help what is maybe a Drew Lock led offense. We'll find out. All right, so now we go into week 6, and the Seahawks are hosting the 49ers on a Thursday night game. Watchability score of 7.77, and they give the Seahawks just a 35.8% chance to win at home against the 49ers. I wish I could say that that feels wrong, but that seems about right until the Seahawks prove otherwise. The Cardinals are given a 33.6% chance to win against the Packers, which seems also about right. This is in Green Bay. And the Rams might be on bye this week, if I'm remembering right. They have an early bye. Yeah, the Rams are on a bye. All right. So let's take a quick look at the matchup. We know the 49ers quite well, but just offensively a powerhouse. First or second in pretty much every major statistic. The only two things that were below 5th in the NFL were field position. The average field position, they started at the 29.6. That's 11th. It's not terrible. And their average third down distance was 13th. But first in EPA per pass, first in EPA per rush, second in sustained drive rate. I'm actually surprised they aren't first in that. First in EPA per sustained drive, first in early down EPA, 5th and 3rd and 4th down success rates. Defensively, this is where the 49ers slipped a little bit. And I don't know that it's really captured as well, but I think that the 49ers defense was not as good last year as it had been in previous years. I do think that getting a new defensive coordinator, I think that getting Brandon Staley there is a big deal for them. But as you can see here, if you're watching along with us, their defense was 7th in EPA per pass, 25th in EPA per rush, 17th in echo rate, sustained drive rate. They were 26th in 3rd and 4th down success rate. So you got a defense in San Francisco that was struggling a little bit. They are going to be missing. I think they're going to be missing Dre Greenlaw quite a bit. I think he was a huge part of that defense. They do get Hufanga back at safety. I think he's a huge part of that defense that was missing for most of the year. They lose Eric Armstead. They gain Malik Collins. They lose Chase Young. They gain Leonard Floyd. We'll see. We will see. But in any event, I think that it is reasonable to expect the 49ers would win that game in Seattle to start that matchup in week 6. So moving on to week 7, the Seahawks. Wow. This is shocking to me. They give the Seahawks only a 38.5% chance to beat the Falcons in Atlanta in week 7. That's the first shocker for me. We're going to come back and see why they might have that in a second. Let's get the other ones down. We've got a 63.2% chance for the Rams to beat the Raiders. That seems right. It's at home as well. 49ers, wow. They give the 49ers a 56.4% chance to beat the Chiefs in San Francisco, even though the Chiefs absolutely rolled them last year in San Francisco. And they give the Cardinals a 52.9% chance to beat the Chargers, which is interesting, in Arizona. All right, so let's go back up and see what is behind this prediction of a heavily favored, or highly probable is probably the better way to say it, Falcons win. Well, if we look at the Falcons defense, the Falcons defense was a little better than I gave it credit for last year. They were 14th in the league in EPA per pass, first in EPA per rush. I did not know that. I did not know this was an elite rush defense team last year. That's interesting. They were 16th in echo rate, sustained drive rate, which is mediocre. It's not terrible. 7th in EPA per sustained drive. Early down EPA was 16th, which also is not, I mean, their worst rankings here at 16. They've got a few, they have third and fourth down success rate, fourth. They're ranked fourth. Average third down distance, fourth. So the defense is much better than I would have given it credit for. I admit I didn't pay close attention to the Falcons last year. I found them to be a pretty unwatchable team. What's the watchability score for this? 5.26. Yeah. And then if you go, their offense was atrocious, but I've talked about this. There's no team that's going to have a bigger jump from who played quarterback for them last year to this year, as far as non-injury related, where it's just replacing a guy. Obviously, the Jets are going to have a pretty big jump, you would think, even with 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you could be 60-year-old Aaron Rodgers and he'd be better than Zach Wilson. But in general, I can see why the offense is going to be expected to be much better. And I'm guessing that that's factored in here somehow. But even if it's not, I think what this is coming down to is a belief that the Seahawks defense is so bad, and the Falcons offense just has to score enough. And the Falcons defense is better, significantly better than the Seahawks defense. So I'm guessing this is just looking at it that way, looking at the fact that the Falcons defense at home will be enough to slow down a Seahawks offense that is just largely middle of the road based on last year's numbers, and that the home team is going to score enough points to win. That's my guess, but that's kind of shocking to me. 61.5% chance for the Falcons to win against the Seahawks. I just don't think of the Falcons as a team that should be favored that much, or probable to win against any team, really, until they've proven a little bit more. All right, so we get into week 8. Let's go back and look. Let's look at the Seahawks record. One second. I'm going to make this a little easier on myself. Highlighting where the win probabilities are higher. Why can't view? Well, trying to color these. Anyway, the Seahawks would be 3-4 based on these probabilities. The Rams would be 3-3. The 49ers would be 7-0. And the Cardinals would be 2-5. So Seahawks would be in third place after week 7 if these probabilities are correct. think I can do this. I'm going to do a little conditional formatting. Hold on a second. Give me 1 second. So if it's greater than 50%. Okay. Done. Cool. Gotta love spreadsheets. All right. We are on to week 8. Week 8. The Rams have a 61.5% chance to win against the Vikings at home. The Cardinals have a 30.6% chance to win against the Dolphins in Miami. The Seahawks have a 42.5% chance to win at home against the Bills. High watchability score, 8.87. And the 49ers, the first, what? What? I don't know if I get this. The first time all year that they don't have the 49ers favored to win is against the Cowboys in San Francisco. They've got the Cowboys with a 63.5% chance to win on Sunday Night Football in San Francisco. How do you figure the 49ers trashed the Cowboys last year? That one's bizarre to me. I don't get that. I don't get that at all. But okay, 49ers suffer their first loss to Dak Prescott and the Cowboys in week 8. The Seahawks fall to the Bills. Let's take a look at that game. And a couple pieces here. So Bills offense was very good last year. Not a surprise with Josh Allen. We'll see how they do this year with Keon Coleman instead of Stephon Diggs. I think that people are maybe overestimating how much the Bills are going to fall. But still, the Bills offense was very good last year. The Bills defense was pretty decent last year. At least it was definitely a top 12 defense last year. But they are going to be in Seattle. So I'm curious how that plays out. I got a super chat here. So let's take that quickly. Pierce Kearney, thank you. Unrelated question here. Irish fan looking to possibly go to a Seahawks game next year. Any advice on best way to get a ticket? Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you're enjoying your day. I would say, generally speaking, I've been burned on getting them from other outlets. So generally speaking, I just go with NFL Ticket Exchange, which is Ticketmaster based. That is the only place where you are 100% guaranteed to get a verified ticket. Most of the time, you're fine getting them from other places like StubHub or whatnot. In my experience, I've both experienced myself and I've seen other people experience fraud and tickets that don't work or other things on those other sites. And they'll say, oh, well, we guarantee your money back. But when you've traveled from Ireland to Seattle to watch a game, the last thing you want is your money back. You want to get into the stadium. So that would be my recommendation, just to not have to worry about it. If there's a specific seat you want or an experience you want, you can find those in other places, but I would generally recommend just going with the NFL sponsored site and just not have to stress about that part of your trip. let me know when you come out here. We'll grab a pint. All right. Okay, let's keep going. And thank you again for the super chat. And thanks to all the YouTube members. You can join as a YouTube member by signing up at the top of the chat. It's pinned there, as well as in the description of the video, and as a Patreon member, a patron at patreon.com/hawkblogger. You know, really appreciate that support. It's part of what makes this fun for me. And I just found out that in August is when I'll be able to make the donation this year for Ben's fund, and hoping that it's the biggest we'll ever do, but that will depend on how much support we get for the show, and appreciate that. All right, let's go into week 9. Week 9. We have got, what do we have here? We have the Cardinals with a 45.9% chance to beat the Bears. That's in Arizona. We have got, the Packers-Lions game in Lambeau. That's going to be a fun game. Yeah, it's got a watchability of 9.1. That, for me, that's not quite a 10 because it's not the most explosive kind of offenses, but I think that's going to be a really fun game to watch. All right, the Rams are at the Seahawks, and they give the Rams a 55.8% chance to win. And this is, we don't know how they're figuring these probabilities, but if they're going based at all off of past history, that's not an unrealistic probability. And the 49ers were in week 9. They are on bye in week 9. So that is no 49ers game. Let's take a look at the Rams matchup with the Seahawks. Their offense was top 10 last year. It wasn't top 5, but it was top 10. I think that they are going to get significantly better with their offensive line investments that they've made. I think Avila at center, Jackson at guard, they've just gotten beefier, stronger. I think that's it's an offensive line I wish that the Seahawks had. And then their defense wasn't as bad as the Seahawks defense, but it wasn't great. It was a mediocre defense. And they've made a lot of investments in the cornerback position, in the defensive line. Of course, they lost Aaron Donald. We'll see how much in his final year, how much he was still lifting up that defense. But I like a lot of the changes they made. Jared Verse, a lot of things there. So I think it is reasonable to predict the Rams to come into Seattle and beat them. Again, until the Seahawks prove otherwise, I think it's a fair thing to predict that the Seahawks will lose to the Rams, that they'll lose to the 49ers. The Seahawks have to earn the respect. It's not just going to be handed to them because they've got a rookie head coach. That's just not how it works. As we continue, okay, we're in week 10. Sorry, we're a couple weeks later than week 8. Week 10, 49ers at the Bucks. The 49ers are given a 64.2% chance to win against the Bucks. They give that a 7.39 watchability score. I don't know. I think the Bucks are a pretty boring team. That's just me. They give the Cardinals a 39.1% chance to win. This is the Seahawks bye week. The Rams have a 52.9% chance to win at home against the Dolphins. And if you remember, when the Seahawks played the Dolphins at home, they were only given a 42.5% chance to win. This is a Monday Night Football game. Could be different things related to travel involved there, but that's interesting to see the difference between how they see the Rams and the Seahawks playing against the Dolphins at home. All right. So the Seahawks had a bye that week. Let's go on to week 11. Let's give you a quick update on record after the bye. The Seahawks to this point in the season, if these probabilities would work out, would be 3-6. Yikes. There'd be a lot of panicking going on if the Seahawks were 3-6 after the going into the bye week. The Rams would be 6-3 and on a 5-game winning streak. The 49ers would be they'd be 8-1. 8-1. And the Cardinals would be 2-8. Yeah. So Seahawks would be 3-6. Cardinals would be 2-8. The Rams would be 6-3, and the 49ers would be 8-1. All right. Let's hope this isn't the way things go. All right. Let's keep going. The Rams in week 11 have a 64% chance to beat the Patriots in New England. And I see a comment from Plenipote saying it seems like these probabilities are based solely on last year's performance. I think that's probably true, although the Falcons gives me some pause because they are showing who is the current quarterback, and I'm wondering if the Cousins was shown as the quarterback. I'm wondering if that is factored in. So I can't be positive. I think there's probably other pieces that are involved, but I think the bulk of this is based off of last year's performance. And that's what people have to go on now. I mean, the odds for the first week of the season where the Seahawks are favored by 5.5 points over the Broncos, I mean, that's based off of best guesses. You know, they don't know how these new coaches, how the new players, how any of this is going to work out. So, yeah, this is all just, if anything else, it's just kind of looking at if the two teams play, who's most likely based on the information we know. I will say, if you paid attention to 538 and their sports stuff for a while and their ELO scores, ELO, one of the things that they demonstrated over time was that there was some predictive value of how a team played in the previous year for the coming year. And that makes sense. Teams don't completely change one year to the next in terms of who's on the roster. It wasn't the only thing that was predictive, but it did have some predictive value. So I don't think these are wildly crazy things for the most part. And we should be talking about it as we go through. Where are some things you really disagree with? Shout it out in chat. Let me know. The Falcons one was the one that surprised me the most. I think the Falcons should be favored to win, or more probable to win as the home team. But them being a 62% favorite in that game feels off to me. All right, getting back to it. Rams, 64% favored. They would be on a 6-game winning streak if that's the case. I'm pretty sure the Cardinals are on a bye this week. The 49ers play the Seahawks. This is after the Seahawks bye. They give the Seahawks a 22.4% chance to win this game. They clearly did not watch Drew Lock enter the fourth quarter with a only down 5 points last year against the 49ers. I think the Seahawks have more than a 22% chance to win that game, but I understand. And again, we don't have a leg to stand on in Seattle until they change the script. So that's just the reality of it, folks. That would make the Seahawks fall to 3-7. Yikes. Rams would be 7-3. 49ers would be 9-1. Cardinals had a bye week. All right. Week 12, 49ers with a 59.3% chance to win against the Packers in Green Bay. I don't buy that for a second. I don't buy it. There's no way that the 49ers should have that high of a probability. I think it should be not flipped, but I would expect the Packers to have a 52, 53, maybe up to 55% chance to win that game in Lambeau Field. But this is what the probabilities are saying. Seahawks end what was a 5-game losing streak by beating the Cardinals at home. They have a 59.8% chance to win that. Poor little Kyler Murray. The Rams they just squeaked by with a 51.2% chance to win. They continue what is a 7-game winning streak for them. Longest in the division going right now. The Seahawks move to 4-7. 4-7. The Rams move to 8-3. The 49ers are 11-1. Oh, sorry, they're 10-1. And the Cardinals are irrelevant. They are 2-9. All right. Let's take a quick look at the Cardinals matchup since we haven't seen the Cardinals yet. First chance to see Marvin Harrison Jr. will be in week 12. This is in Seattle. I mean, the Cardinals on offense actually had a decent rushing offense, 7th in the league in EPA. I think that the running back that they added was it Trey something Benson maybe. I think is a good addition and will help them. I think it'll also help them in pass rate or in their EPA per pass. 23rd in sustained drives and echo rate. 17th in 3rd and 4th down success. 21st in early down EPA. Their defense was just bad. 31st in EPA per pass, 27th in EPA per rush, 32nd in sustained drive rate and echo rate, 32nd in early down EPA, 32nd in 3rd and 4th down success. So, I mean, while everyone's talking about, they got Marvin Harrison, they got Trey Benson and whatever on offense, I'm not buying what they did on defense. They got Max Melton. Sorry, Max Melton, Bo's brother, I believe. And he's a decent corner, and they got Darius Robinson who will help, but I just don't believe these guys are enough. I think their defense is still going to be a real problem. All right, so that is week 12. Let's go to week 13. Week 13, we have got the Cardinals with a 45.3% chance to win against the Vikings in Minnesota. That's rough. That's rough. They have the Seahawks. Now, see, this is where it can't just be based off of last year's numbers. They have the Seahawks with a 35.2% chance to win in New York against the Jets. I just don't believe that if they were not factoring in Aaron Rodgers, if they had Zach Wilson as numbers, there's no way they'd give the Jets a 65% chance to beat anybody. This is one of the worst teams in football last year. But we'll go and we'll check in that matchup in a second. But let me get the rest of probabilities. The Rams are 55.8% chance to win against the Saints in New Orleans. That seems about right. I would give him even higher chance than 55. And the 49ers with a 57.5% chance to win in Buffalo. Evening game, Sunday night game, relatively late in the season, week 13. That could be a fun one if it's snowing, cold, watching the 49ers players wince. All right, so let's look at this matchup with the Jets team. And like I said, the Jets defense was excellent. Maybe one of the best. I think definitely one of the top 3 defenses in the NFL. They were 3rd in EPA per pass. They were 10th in EPA per rush, 2nd in echo rate, sustained drive rate. They were 1st in early down EPA, so that's a tough matchup for the Seahawks because they do a lot of work on early downs, or at least they did last year. 6th in 3rd and 4th down success rate. But then you look at the Jets offense, it was 32nd in the NFL in EPA per pass, 29th in EPA per rush, 32nd in echo rate, 32nd in EPA per echo, 32nd in early down EPA, 32nd in 3rd and 4th down success, 32nd in average 3rd down distance. So this is where I don't think that they're only basing these probabilities off of last year's numbers, because you can see here it says Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback. I think they've got to be factoring in a little bit of that behind the scenes. So not great. Things are not going well for the Seahawks. Not going well in Mike McDonald's first foray. So let's get to week 14. And we've got the Seahawks with only a 47% chance to win in Arizona. Cardinals break their own little losing streak here. They had lost 5 in a row. The Cardinals and the Seahawks now would become tied with 3-10 would be their records. Oh, no, sorry. The Seahawks have 4 wins. I'm wrong. Thank God. Seahawks are 4-9. Cardinals are 3-10. Yikes. All right. The Rams have a 45.9% chance to win at home against the Bills. Weird. These are some of the things that I don't get, and they might just have numbers that we don't have access to. But that breaks the Rams' winning streak. They had a 8-game winning streak snapped right there. '49ers have a 67.9% chance to win against the Bears at home. They still have only 1 loss on the year based off of these probabilities. Let's go into week 15. Rams play the 49ers in San Francisco. They lose after that long win streak. They lose 2 in a row here. They got a 29% chance to win in San Francisco. That means the 49ers have a 71% chance to win, firmly controlling the division, even though the Rams are having quite the year based off of these probabilities. The Cardinals with a 59.8% chance to beat the Patriots in Arizona. A 2-game winning streak, the first 2-game winning streak of the season for the Cardinals. By the way, the Seahawks have only won 2 in a row at the beginning of the year based off of these so far. And we get down to the Packers versus the Seahawks in Seattle. Sunday night game. They only give the Seahawks a 45.9% chance to win that game. let's take a look. Packers offense last year, 4th in EPA per pass, 11th in EPA per rush, 3rd in echo rate, sustained drive rate. So I think that's a really interesting number, and I think that jives with the Packers offense and watching them. They just are a team that very regularly moves the ball and has a lot of different weapons. They were 6th in early down EPA, 4th in 3rd and 4th down success rate. Very powerful offense that should just get stronger this year. I think they added Josh Jacobs, right? I mean, he's a wrecking ball, and he's done some damage to the Seahawks in the past when he was with the Raiders. And then on defense, this is the thing where the Packers were actually, their defense was not so great, and I think they made a lot of improvements there. 24th in EPA per pass, 23rd in EPA per rush, 25th in echo rate, sustained drives, 23rd in early down EPA, 28th in 3rd and 4th down success. So the Packers defense is not great. This is going to be prime time. They give the watchability score of 8.3 for this one. I think this will be an entertaining win. The Packers Seahawks games are almost always entertaining. I mean, I don't think this is crazy. I would make it closer to 50-50. I think the Seahawks have enough of a home field advantage where I give it a little bit closer to 50-50. But I would think the Packers would be favored in that game. All right, we get into week 16. Seahawks fans are losing their minds. The team only has 4 wins at this point. The Cardinals, wow, the Cardinals with a 3-game winning streak. They have a 54.1% chance to beat the Panthers in Carolina. The Rams, tough for the Rams. They're on a 3-game losing streak after their big winning streak. They fall to the Jets in New York. They only have a 40.2% chance to win that game. The Seahawks, yes, the Seahawks notch another win. They have a 56.4% chance to beat the Vikings. And the 49ers just keep rolling with a 54.1% chance to win in Miami. So let's take a look at this matchup a little bit closer with the Seahawks. Did I miss it already? Where's the Vikings game? There it is. All right. So this would be in Seattle. Aaron Jones, J.J. McCarthy, T.J. Hawkinson coming to town. Offense last year for the Vikings, a little bit misleading since Kirk Cousins missed, half the season. But they were 17th in EPA per pass, 26th in EPA per rush, 13th in echo rate. And the early down EPA, 20th, 14th in 3rd and 4th down success rate. Defensively, not great. 21st in EPA per pass, 17th in EPA per rush, 14th in echo rate, 29th in 3rd and 4th down success given up. So yeah, I think that this is definitely a game the Seahawks should expect to win, and I don't think the Vikings did enough to really change their fortunes from the previous year. They're a team that's now building with a young quarterback, for better or for worse. All right, we get here into week 17, the last 2 weeks of the season. They give the Seahawks only a 38.5% chance to win in Chicago against Caleb Williams and the Bears on Thursday night. It's a Thursday night game. I think that's not crazy because traveling the distance they're going to travel on a Thursday night game is tough. We'll come back and we'll look at that game a little bit more closely. They give the Cardinals only a 33.6% chance to win at home against the Rams. which means the Rams break their 3-game losing streak and the Cardinals break their 3-game winning streak. The Rams are given a 66.4% chance to win. And then the 49ers are given a 64.8% chance to win against the Lions at home on Monday night. I think the Lions deserve more of a chance than that, but I still agree that the 49ers would be likely favored in that game. To this point in the season, the 49ers have only had one game where they were not the most probable team to win, and that was a Week 8 home game against the Bills. That is bizarre to me. I don't understand what could possibly make the 49ers underdogs to the Bills, but favorites in all of these other games. I mean, if this is right, I mean, the Minnesota Vikings at home again, like the Minnesota Vikings. Oh, no. Sorry. I'm looking at, never mind. Forget it. Forget me. I'm looking at the Seahawks schedule. There was a different game that the 49ers were. It was definitely in Week 8. I got to go back and find it now because I'm curious. Week 8. Who was it that they were? Where? Oh, the Cowboys. That's right. The Cowboys. The Cowboys are the only team that have a probability higher than 50% probability to beat them. That's wild to me. All right, so let's get to the final week of the season. The 49ers wrap things up with a 16-1 season with 68.9% probability to win. The Cardinals have 31.1% probability to beat San Francisco in Arizona. And as we look down to the Rams Seahawks game, the Seahawks have a 32.1% chance to win in LA to end the season. The Rams have a 67.9% chance to win. So yeah, that is a 5-12 season for the Seahawks. It is a 11-6 season for the Rams. It is a 16-1 season for the 49ers and a 5-12 season for the Cardinals. So if that was the way things finished, 16-1 for the 49ers, 11-6 for the Rams, and then 5-12 for the Seahawks and Cardinals, how would you all feel? How would you all feel? Is this the worst case scenario? 5 wins? Would you be losing your minds if the Seahawks had 5 wins next year? As Jeff Simmons would say, I think it depends on how they lose or how they play. It certainly would help with draft status. I wonder if this is worst case. Is this worst case, or is finishing with 8 or 9 wins again worst case and ending up with a middle of the draft pick? I don't know. I guess it'll really depend on how the Seahawks play and whether we see improvement. If the offensive line is still terrible and it holds the team back and there's injuries there, and the defense starts to show progress and they look like they're starting to develop into something meaningful, I honestly wouldn't hate it. I would not enjoy the process, but if the defense is starting to get some starch in their uniforms and actually hold teams down And the offense is held back by what I'm pretty sure is not a good offensive line. Then you go back to the drawing board. If you find out, let's say that Charles Cross is not the guy you hope he is, and you now decide, all right, into his last year of his deal, I'm going to go draft another left tackle, or I'm going to get maybe a new quarterback, maybe who knows. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's really the absolute worst thing. But as Daniel Brown in chat's pointing out, yes, they would start out 3-2 and then finish yes, 3-2, and then they'd finish with 3 wins the rest of the way. So yeah, it would be rough. The wins, just to remind you, the wins that they have for the Seahawks on the year, the first 2 games, home against Denver, at the Patriots, home against the Giants in week 5, home against the Cardinals in week 12, home against the Vikings. Those are their 5 wins. And yes, only 2 wins the rest of the way after starting 3-2. They have the Seahawks only winning 1 game on the road. And that's the game against the Patriots in week 2. They have them losing every other away game. The next closest away game in terms of probability to win, the Cardinals, where they have a 47.1% chance to win, is their highest other away game chance. Their lowest probability to win this year, based on this, is the away game against the 49ers in week 11, where they only have a 22% chance to win that one. After that, their next lowest probability to win is week 4 at the Detroit Lions, where they have a 30.1% chance to win. Interestingly, when you look at the 49ers numbers, not only are they probable to win in 16 of 17 games, but there's only 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 4 games where they have less than a 60% chance to win. The Seahawks only have 2 games all years where they have a 60% or greater chance to win. And that's against the Broncos and the Giants at home. The Rams are a little bit more in the middle, but they have, let's see. They have no games where they're over 70% chance to win. The 49ers have a number of those games. The Rams' highest percentage game they have is a 68% chance to win in the last week of the season against the Seahawks. That is their highest probability win, is against the Seahawks in LA to end the season. So yeah, that is the probabilities for the Seahawks this season. It's bleak. But you know what? We're going to look reality in the face, and we're going to find out what comes of it. We're not going to shy away from it. We're not going to try to just say the Seahawks are great, even when they haven't proven that they are. And it's kind of fun. If that's the probable outcome is 5-12, it's a low floor. That's a low bar to beat. Let's see what let's see what Mike McDonald can do with that. So I appreciate everyone tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back. Gonna keep trying to do it even on the weekends. Gonna keep trying. So I think I'll do a show tomorrow. I'll do a show Sunday. Keep this going. Don't forget that Jarek Reed will join me at 1:00 on Monday for a interview. I'm looking forward to talking to Jarek. I think he's got a ton of potential. I'm very interested to hear from him what's going on and what he's expecting from himself. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. If you haven't followed us on Instagram at HawkBlogger, please do. Trying to grow the community in multiple places. It makes it easier, especially on Instagram. It makes it easier to recruit guests. Not everyone's as active on Twitter, so would appreciate the follow there. That would be a big help, and also increase the odds that I get some guests that would be good to add. And if you haven't joined as a YouTube member, please do. We had a couple folks join yesterday. Would love to see some more folks join today. The link is pinned to the chat. It's also in the description of the video. And you can join as a patron, patreon.com/hawkblogger. As soon as I'm done here, I will rip this into an audio version of the pod that's only available to patrons. And you can get it on Spotify now as well, even as a patron. And it's a great thing to do. It's a great way to support the show. And you get access to the Slack channel where the conversation continues each and every day. And there'll be Mariner talk, I'm sure, there as well, as the Mariners go into Baltimore to face the Orioles. We'll see what comes of that game later tonight. All right, everybody. This has been fun. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. This has been another episode of HawkBlogger Mornings.